The gospel writers, when they assembled their materials, we tend to think that they just did things in chronological order. But that's not really true. The gospel writers were more like preachers that are putting together a sermon, and so they would pull in different stories of Jesus in order to make a point. Now, Luke is credited of probably being the most chronological of all the gospels, but even he used various stories to illustrate. That's why the gospel writers may have the same story in each of the gospels, but used in different contexts, because often they're trying to illustrate or bring home a different point. In Luke 10, after Jesus trains the 70, and Luke records all that and goes into more detail than the other gospels on those things, he then answers the question, who do I minister to? Are these people all trained and equipped? But who do we minister to? He answers that question by telling the story of the Good Samaritan. Now, that story can be used to illustrate many different things, but in the context in Luke 10, it primarily answers the question, who am I to minister to? And the answer to that is whoever God puts in your path. And it doesn't matter their race, nationality, condition, whatever, it's just whoever's in your path. And of course, Jesus makes a point to talk about how the priest, avoided him and so forth, avoided the wounded person. And it was a Samaritan, a despised Samaritan, who really did do kingdom ministry by caring for this person. And we tend to be very critical of the priest and say how bigoted and prejudiced, and I'm glad I'm not like that. Well, our problem may not be with being prejudiced or afraid of being contaminated, like some of the issues they may have had. But we may be just as guilty of the priest, because I really believe God puts people in our path every day. There's someone that we can speak a word to, someone we can minister to, someone we can care for in small or large ways. The problem is not the opportunity. The problem is often, and I am so guilty of this, so I'm not standing one as accusing anyone, and that is we get so focused on our own schedule and our own agenda that we're not even thinking about this person that God may have us to minister to. We're not even trying to be aware of interruptions in our schedule. And I guess that's one of the big things in being a kingdom minister, is being willing to have our schedules and our agenda interrupted. That man that was on his way to Jericho and saw this bruised and broken person stopped what he was doing. He kind of suspended all of his plans and expended time and energy and money to care for this person, because he was the person in his path that had a need. And that may be one of the most difficult things in our highly charged, fast-paced Western culture, is our willingness to say, I may have things to do and plans, but I'm going to trust God that if I stop and do what He wants me to do, He's going to enable me to finish the other things I feel like I need to get done. And so we need to approach every day with a willingness and an openness to have our plans suspended, our plans interrupted, and a willingness to expend time and energy and sometimes money to minister to that person that's in our path. See, that's where the adventure is in the Christian life. That's where the excitement is, when we allow God to break in and we create these wonderful stories of how God touches lives through us. But that only happens when we're committed to His agenda first, not our own agendas. When we're willing to have our plans interrupted by the person He wants us to minister to. So dear friend, I challenge you and I challenge my own heart to approach each day with an openness, a willingness to have our plans interrupted, in anticipation that God may do that, and a willingness to expend time, energy, and money, whatever it takes, to minister to that person in our path. Who do we minister to in the kingdom? Very simple. Whoever God brings before us in the course of our everyday life. That's who He's called us to. That's our ministry.